Hello, my name is Jacob Roney. This is my introductory video for an ongoing debate series with my brother Aaron. We will mostly be debating religious topics, however we may stem to other topics in the future if we see fit. This channel was created mainly to encourage other individuals to consider differing viewpoints than their own, as well as hone our own skills of logic and argument. Our first topic of debate is the burden of proof. That is to say, who is responsible for proving the existence or non-existence of God? My brother's position will be that theists are required to provide evidence for God's existence, whereas atheists bear no burden of proof, for they accept the null hypothesis. In other words, the position rooted in denying any affirmation that an entity or event is related to another entity or event until objective evidence is shown to prove such, or even that the entity exists in the first place. My position makes the distinction of what type of claim is being made. Of course, if one makes an objective claim as fact in either affirmation or denial of God's existence, that individual should be required to provide evidence for such a bold claim. We would call this type of claim Gnostic because it would refer to a claim of certain knowledge. Of course, neither my brother nor I would claim to have certain knowledge of whether or not God exists. You may hear him use the term agnostic atheist to refer to himself and agnostic theist to refer to myself, thereby rendering the discussion and burden of proof moot because neither of us is staking a claim as fact. However, for the sake of argument, I will take the position that using the null hypothesis in a scenario in which objective evidence cannot be obtained can lead us to a mistake and or contradiction. For this example of null hypothesis, my brother may invoke a courtroom. Innocent until proven guilty, right? That's our null hypothesis in our system. Well, a courtroom case, we'll say it's a crime. A crime is an event that occurred in our measurable universe that we can obtain objective evidence to prove whether or not that occurred. Videos, we consider that objective evidence. Or fingerprints or DNA. However, we all know of cases where there was not enough objective evidence to convict an individual, and yet the jury felt there was enough circumstantial evidence to sway their subjective opinion as to whether or not that individual committed the crime. And in some cases, enough of a sway to convict that individual of the crime. Now, I'm not one to make a comment on the American justice system, but it does serve to show that assuming innocence as the null hypothesis can at least certainly allow for the possibility of making a mistake. However, I would of course not recommend allowing our subjective opinion to make an assertion that an event or entity exists or occurred as a verifiable fact. It may sway our degree of certainty, not up to 100%, of course. Rather than continue to show how the null hypothesis could cause a mistake, I'd like to use my own example to show how it can cause us to make a contradiction for ourselves. Suppose you are invited to the very first football game, and you have no knowledge of how the game works or any of the players. That is to say, you have no objective evidence as to which team will be victorious, but of course you know that due to the nature of the fact that it is a game, one team must be victorious. You are asked by an individual, let's say the two teams playing are the Cowboys and the Aliens. You are asked by an individual, you being the null hypothesis enthusiast, will the Cowboys win? You say, no, there's not enough objective evidence to prove that the Cowboys will win. They will not win. Then you are asked moments later, will the Aliens win? You reply, no, there is not objective evidence to show that the aliens will win, therefore I accept the null hypothesis that they will lose. Of course, one team must be victorious, so we can see where this can lead us to some contradiction. However, the best response for an individual who is trying to do the simplest solution, Occam's razor style, null hypothesis enthusiast style, would simply be to say, I don't know which team will win. Excuse me. You haven't made a claim that either team will win or lose as a fact, but you have not led yourself into a contradiction either. This pure agnosticism is a superior position to the null hypothesis because it allows us to remove ourselves from that contradiction. However, in a scenario, you could say in this scenario, well, the Cowboys are from my area, and perhaps if they win this game, they'll bring back revenues and profits to my city, and so I think I will root for the Cowboys. That's certainly acceptable as well. You haven't made a claim that the Cowboys will win as fact or that they will lose as fact, and likewise with the aliens, but rather you're stating your mere preference or your subjective degree of certainty that they will win, albeit that it was only slightly modified to prefer them 51-49 over the aliens merely because they're from your area. And so it goes with God. We can make any attempt to try and say something is objective evidence, such as, oh, well, we eat and breathe out of the same hole, and so thus I am less inclined to believe in a creator. Or, wow, DNA is so complex and amazing that someone must have intelligently designed it. Of course, these observations aren't objective evidence, but rather they serve to mold us into our own subjective degree of certainty or faith towards God. I myself, of course, in my experiences, have determined that I have enough subjective certainty for my own experiences to believe in a God, and I could only hope that my brother or other individuals will find their own subjective certainty and increase their faith in a creator. I hope this was a educational experience. I look forward to creating new videos, and I hope you have a wonderful day.